It's great to see everyone today. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dawn Smith. I am the MCAT Manager of Outreach and Engagement, and I'm joined today by Catherine Ford and Jennifer Antonio from our MCAT administration team. So welcome to our MCAT registration Q&A. We're so glad that you've joined us today, and we look forward to all of your questions. This webinar will be recorded and posted on our pre-med webinar page and our MCAT YouTube playlist in the coming days. I do want to clarify from the beginning that we'll be talking very specifically about MCAT registration opening. So if you've got some questions about MCAT preparation, there's lots of great resources and webinars on our website, and we invite you to check those out. We'll also be having a prep webinar later in December, but today we're specifically going to be answering questions about MCAT registration. So we encourage you to put those questions in the Q&A box. And from there, I'm going to hand it off to Catherine.
Hey everyone, nice to meet you. I'm Catherine. So today, just to start us off, I wanted to talk a little bit about the season opening registration event. We got a lot of questions about hopefully the things I'm going to answer for you in these slides. So first we'll go over the slides and then we'll answer some more questions you have. So the event takes place across 3 days, the season opening event. Today, you could go in and register your profile. So what that means is when you log in to the MCAT registration system, you'll see at the top 5 different tabs that talk about your name and your address and some parental information if you have it, and what you're intending to apply for, and different just bio information about you. So you're creating this profile in the MCAT registration system. We recommend that you do that as soon as you can. You'll have access to the MCAT registration system to register your information through the evening of October 20th, so 4 more days. So we recommend you go in and register your bio information today when you can, so that if you want to come to the event of season opening, you're kind of ready to go and schedule. You don't have to fill out all that information. It can take 5 to 10 minutes. It's nothing that you need to grab, it's all records in your head. So it's not terribly hard to know the information, just takes a couple minutes. So register your information. And then if you intend to come to season opening across these 3 days, we will open at noon on the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. And the opening is based on where you want to test. So let's say, and maybe we'll just scroll this slide one more to talk a little bit about that. So this is a map of the different states and countries that will be available on opening days. So on the 21st at noon, all the purple states are available for scheduling. So if you want to test in one of those states, I'm just going to call out a couple: Kentucky, Ohio, Pennsylvania. If you want to test in those states, you can start scheduling on October 21st. You don't have to. It's just when we're opening the system. You can schedule across the rest of the year for any of the testing dates we have open, which will be all of them. So you don't have to come to season opening, but if you want to, and you want to, depending on where you want to test, is how this map works. So on the first day, the purple states are open. The second day, we open the teal states. And then the third day, we open Puerto Rico, all other US territories, Canada, and all the international locations. And then the system stays open for the rest of the year. All the test dates are there. So you can choose to come to the event. You don't have to come to the event. But just to say, this is kind of how we open it to manage flow of the system, so you don't have to wait, a long time to schedule. But this is kind of how it's broken up. Next slide. So the waiting room for the event. When you come to the event on the 21st, 22nd, or 23rd, the system will show a waiting room. So it's It's a nice little waiting room, and you don't go to a different link. You just go right to the MCAT registration system. This appears, and we recommend getting there a few minutes. If you want to be there right away, again, you don't have to be, but if you want to be there right away, we open at noon. We recommend getting there sometime around 11:50, 11:45, 11:50. What happens is the if you are there at 11:50, everyone in the waiting room at that time gets put into a line. That line is random. If you get there after 11:50, you're put at the back of the waiting line. So, the waiting line moves through at 12, the waiting room open or the MCAT registration system opens, and then that line that has been formed goes through, you know. But if you get there, a little bit before 11:50, be put in line, and then after that, if you get there after that, then you're at the back of the line. So a couple things about the waiting room. There's no advantage to logging in more than a few minutes before 11:50. The line doesn't do anything. You're just waiting there. You're wasting your time. You don't need to be there. So if you want to be there around 11:45, that's fine. When you're in the waiting room, there will be a little sign up box that says, "Please notify me when my turn is here." So you'll get if you sign up for that, you'll get an email when it's your turn. And then you will be prompted. There's a link in that email that then prompts you to, there's reopen the system if you're not there. There's a unique code just for you, so we don't want you to share that code because then someone else could take your spot, and you don't want to do that. Um, and then refreshing or opening multiple tabs doesn't help you. It just, slows down your experience. So don't do that. And then in the waiting room, it will estimate the wait time once it hits less than an hour, and you will know your place in line. So it will tell you your number 7, number 500, whatever those numbers are. It will tell you that. And that can change, right? People leave the line, they go into the queue, like that number will change. I think those are the things I want to talk about season opening. Let's just pause. I'll pause for any Q&As that I didn't cover.
And Catherine, I can get started with some of the QAs that have come in the
Great.
box. So I will start with the first couple, and then I'll have you take a look at some of the next ones, and we can alternate. And thank you guys for populating questions. Excited to get through as many as possible. So there are a couple just at the upfront here about Canadian registration. So Canada and Canadian registration will be on the third day, October 23rd. And for the fee assistance, which was another question, we work with AFMC, and they are the organization that has their own set of kind of deadlines, application deadlines for the Canadian fee assistance program. So I'd recommend you can review their site and apply accordingly. Again, the benefits for fee assistance, whether it's the Canadian fee assistance, which are the same benefits as the US fee assistance, are not retroactive. So if you want to get the discounted MCAT registration fees, you would need to be approved through the AFMC, through the fee assistance program before you register. So wanted to quickly get through those first two questions. And Catherine, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so I see a couple questions about the waiting room. How do you access the waiting room? Um, what information do I need? The waiting room is the same. It just sits on top of the MCAT registration system. If you know how to get there, that's all you need to know. We just put it up, we just layer it on top, so there's nothing new there. So just go to the MCAT registration system.
And I'll
Yeah, go
go
ahead.
ahead, Catherine. Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh,
I'll get the next question when you're done.
sure. So in order to register, you just need two really important things to know is when you fill out your name, it needs to be based on the ID that is an MCAT accepted ID that you'll bring to the test center. So, typically a driver's license, a passport, these things qualify. We have, links on the website about I think there's about 7 requirements an ID must have, things like your photo, your name, yeah, of course, just kind of like a typical government ID. So when you're registering, make sure you have the ID you plan to present at this test center and your credit card or your debit card, however you plan to pay. Um, so that's all you really need to know to be there that day. We do recommend not autofilling, using your autofills when you're registering because it can, swap out names or credit cards. Just, double check all that.
Yep.
I think that's
There's a
it. Yeah,
couple
Jen.
Yeah, there's a couple questions about that I'll answer here related to testing with accommodations and scheduling and how that works. So, um, if you are already approved for your accommodations, then you would have received information about how to schedule and work directly with Pearson VUE by calling them to get those accommodations scheduled on your exam date. If you are not approved yet for accommodations, you can still schedule. You could come to opening day or after opening day an exam without accommodation. So just pick the date you want to schedule. And then you would continue the process to apply for accommodations with the MCAT. Again, please make sure you're looking at the deadlines associated with the test date in which you've registered for, so you can get your application in time reviewed and the determination well within the time to get those accommodations if they're approved, whichever ones are approved, added to your test date. But you can go ahead and schedule a regular standard exam and then have your accommodations essentially added later. What I will also just emphasize, though, it is possible, depending on the accommodations you might be approved for, that they might not be available in that original test date that you scheduled, and they may need to kind of work with you to reschedule to a close by test date. So it is still kind of first come, first serve and based on availability. But again, you have the ability to do it either way. Get your accommodations approved first or schedule first and then have the accommodations added.
Awesome. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, I have a question. How long does it take to register? How much is it to register? How do dates work? So when you register and you fill out your 5 tabs, that doesn't cost anything. When you actually go to schedule the exam, that's when you pay. So you can register all your information, go look at the test dates and sites, and you can decide not to pay at that point. You can, you could look and see if you, at that point, if you're not interested, you don't have to pay yet. It doesn't take very long to register to fill out those five tabs, 5 to 10 minutes. But if you do it ahead of time, takes a little bit less time when you're scheduling. There was another question about, can I do it after opening? Absolutely. You can register, you can schedule any time after we open, starting, on the 21st. This is only for those who want to more promptly schedule your test. If you're not ready to schedule, you don't need to go. Um, we have a couple website recommendations about when you schedule. Are you, do you feel like you know the material? Do you feel like you know the deadlines of your school? If you want to take the exam twice, you might want to figure out how to schedule that. So you don't have to come on opening day. There's no requirement. So you can register and schedule any time throughout the year for any date that's available. And I had one more thought, but I've
Maybe I'll
forgotten it.
add,
So
maybe I'll add
yeah.
what it may have been, Catherine, onto it, because there was a question about, like, is there a disadvantage if I don't come
Mm.
on opening day? And again, all the things Catherine said are correct. You need to schedule when you know you're ready. But I thought I could share a little bit of information about our prior opening events, and that might help you think about what is right for you. So in the past, our prior season openings, we typically have done January through June dates in kind of a 2-day fashion. And we've seen a pretty consistent pattern across the last couple of years at the end of the 2-day opening, which is kind of 3 things. One, the January through March dates tend to have more limited availability after the end of the event. The April dates are a bit of a more mixed bag, with some markets having limited availability and others having widespread availability. And then May and June have widespread availability in all markets. So we've never done this, our first year doing the 3-day opening with all dates January through September. So we don't have any specific apples to apples information to share, but I thought that that might be helpful information as you think about next week and your future plans. Additionally, this year we also have a new test date in February, so we have gone from 30 to 31 dates. So there's more seating in the calendar year generally. But wanted to add that on to that comment that you were just making, Catherine.
Awesome, thank you. Let's talk a little bit about testing limits. So, Leslie, I know there is a slide about testing limits, and I just wanted to briefly talk about that because there's a few questions about can I register for more than one exam at one time? So, testing limits. You have annual testing limits and lifetime testing limits. And these are those. So how often can I test? So in one testing year, which is the same as a calendar year, we just only test until September. So we call it a testing year, but think of it as a calendar year. We have limited you to 3 attempts per testing year, 4 attempts across 2 years, and 7 in your lifetime. You may only register for one exam at once. So once you register for that test, once you schedule that test, you cannot sign up for another one until you cancel that test, reschedule that test, that test is over. But as soon as that test is over, there's about a 24-hour waiting period in order to schedule another test. So you don't have to wait. You have to wait about a day, but you don't have to wait if you want to schedule right away after that test you just took, you absolutely can. You do not have to wait to see your score. That will take about 30 to 35 days to see your score. So you can schedule right after you take one test for another. Just remember that you do have um, limits on how many you can schedule. You can reschedule as much as you want, but you cannot schedule more than these limits. Yeah, I see someone saying signing up for two test dates at once. It's not possible. So I'm not sure where that information is coming from, but it is not possible to sign up for 2 tests at one time. It's one, that one's over, you can immediately sign up for another one.
Mhm. I see another question about the access to video for the waiting room, so maybe we can put that back in the chat so people can look at that again. For me, I'm very visual, so I like to look at videos and really have a sense of what it'll look like when you show up, if you're showing up next week. There was another question about the waiting room. Oh, and the wait time. So question, is it generally minutes or hours, or it depends? It depends. And also typically it has been, and if you're the last person in line, could be up to kind of 2 hours, 1.5, 2 hours. Again, we don't know exactly how many people will come this year, but that's what we've typically seen. The line does, though, can move quickly at times. So it can jump, and once you're under an hour, it'll show the number of minutes in on your actual little card waiting room section, so you'll be able to see the actual minutes as well. So wanted to just answer that one about the waiting room, and thanks for putting the link again in the chat.
Yeah, so Leslie has also just put in a really great tool we have called the Test Center Locator. So you'll be able to see where all the centers are without having to do anything on season opening day. You can go in now and see where all the centers are to pick your best locations within your area. And so you can type in a city, you can type in your closest address, you can type in a state, a country. It'll pop up all those in that area and you'll be able to tell where they all are. I think to reiterate a little bit about um, registration versus opening, when you're filling out your bio information, those 5 tabs, there's no credit card um, exchange. So only you fill out all your information, do that at your leisure. You have all year to do it. And then you fill out that, and then there's a button that says schedule. So once you hit schedule, it'll bring up this search box, and then you can find your center, and then you select the date, and then you pay. So the payment is the very, very last step. You have the flexibility of finding dates and locations that work for you, filling out your bio information, do all of that before you attempt to pay.
Um, let's see. There's a question about our fees. They are on the website, so you can see that information. The standard and registration fee and the rescheduling fees, rather. Scanning through. And there's a question about how rescheduling works. And yes, there's an associated fee. And we might have that slide we could pull back up and just briefly talk about the fees and how they change. And I'll start talking anyway. But the earlier you reschedule, the less expensive it is to reschedule. And again, all this information is on our website, but I think it'll be popping up on the screen here in a second too. So here you go. The registration fee standard for this year is at $355. Then the rescheduling fees, and as you can see, it's kind of days out before your exam. So 60 or more days, 39 to 59, and then 10 to 29 days, or 29 to 10 days. And then after 10 days, no changes can be made.
Yeah, I have a couple questions
Mhm.
about test centers open and offered dates and this and that. So in the US, uh, when you look at the website, the calendar is split by country. So one calendar is US specific, another calendar is Canada specific, and then there's a listing of the international sites that are date specific based on international sites. So we only test 31 days a year this year, 30 in the past 31 days. So testing locations are not open every day. That was a question I saw. But all the US and Canada, all the US sites are open on all the US dates. So if that helps you, I don't know, but you'll see all the availability when you're in the MCAT registration system. I do see some questions about, centers and how many centers per state and how many seats per center. It varies. Um, the average center has about 15 seats. Um, if you, for some reason, a site would fill up, there is a tool that's called the awaiting appointment notification, and you would only use that if a site is full. So you won't see that selection when you're in the MCAT registration system unless that site is full. So you can basically click this link that says, I want to be notified when a seat opens at this center. You'll get an email. You can have up to 5 notifications at one time, and you can delete notifications, add new ones as your schedule may change or your preferences may change. And again, you're not going to see that commonly. So you won't be able to see it. It's not something you can get preference to if the site is fully available or there's plenty of seats. But should that happen, you'll see that button.
Two other quick things. Just one is just to say it again. Yes, I can. You can kind of retroactively add your accommodations to your test appointment. So just again, once you're approved, you'll get information about how to get those accommodations added to your appointment. And then there's a question about fee assistance. If you're already approved for fee assistance, is there anything I need to do when registering for the exam, or will be automatically applied? It will be automatically applied. There's nothing else that you need to do.
I'm seeing a couple other questions about test centers being open. So if you use that MCAT center locator, you'll be able to see what centers are available. So most centers are open on all dates. Occasionally centers have to close for pre-scheduled maintenance or, some random reason, but yeah, most centers are open on all dates. And if you use that locator, you'll be able to tell what those are. The waiting appointment notification, yes. In terms of scheduling, if you can both sign up to be notified if you don't have an exam date now or if you do. So if you reschedule into a date or site preference that the AAN sends you, you do have to pay a rescheduling fee. If it's a net new seat, of course, you just pay the basic registration fee. But yeah, anytime you move your exam for a date change or a location change, there's associated fees with that. So we recommend really honing in and pinpointing when you want to test, where you want to test so that you don't have to pay rescheduling fees.
And there's a question about your ID, and if you have to send in a picture of your ID when you register, and you do not need to send in a picture of your ID when you register. Sorry if you don't, if you caught that one already.
Yeah, great point. We don't verify addresses and we don't verify middle names. So the ID, again, there are 7 requirements on an ID. It must be in English, it must have your photo, it must not be expired. Those are 3 of them. But we don't check things like, if you're in student housing versus your permanent address. That doesn't matter. We don't check that. We don't check your middle name. So things like that are great questions, but we do not verify those.
Um, where there's just another one we hadn't talked about. This is a little outside of registration, but also given the time of year, like what happens if a test center has a closure due to weather, you will be notified as soon as that weather event happens if there is the need to, for safety reasons, kind of close a site. So you'd receive an email from Pearson VUE indicating that, and then we'd work, and then you have on the ability to reschedule, but they would notify you via email.
Perfect. Just looking through the questions. Thank you. These are all great questions. Someone asked, what demographic questions do you ask in the profile? It's all very basic. You can, you can choose to not answer some of them if that's your preference as well. But just kind of the basic questions.
And again, I think you mentioned this, but all the US locations will be open on all of the test dates, all 31 of the test dates this year. So every market kind of in the US will have available seats, and we'll be doing MCAT tests on those 31 days that we are testing this year.
Oh, I see a question about Canadians having to pay in USD. Yes, all payments tendered are in USD. So not just Canadians, but any international booking scheduling is in US dollars. Yes.
What is the website they use to register would just be it's through the AAMC MCAT registration system, and we can also pop that in the link too if we want to post the actual MCAT registration link. And you can either bookmark it and kind of go there on opening day, or you can go or whenever you want to register, or you can navigate through the AAMC website as well.
I see another question about IDs. So this one is really specific, but I'll talk about it anyway. If you have a paper ID or your ID is expiring by the time you are taking the exam, those are both not acceptable forms of ID. I would say you can, just based on the date now, it's halfway through October. We don't test until January. You can probably get a non-paper ID by that time, but a paper ID is not acceptable. And so you could apply for an ID exception, or, once your paper ID is gone and you have a real ID, that'll work too.
And that just kind of piggybacking on the test centers open everywhere question. There was a specific one about, is that the case for Canada? Is every test center open for all the offered dates in Canada? And yes, and on the Canadian dates, kind of in all the markets in Canada, the test centers they are open on all of the Canadian dates in all the Canadian markets. And I think we got through a lot. And I think we're right at time also.
We
Right,
are at
Dawn?
time. We are at time. Yes. I want to thank everyone for such fantastic questions today. Thanks so much to Catherine Ford and Jennifer Antonio for joining us from our MCAT administration team. We so appreciate your time and your insight and knowledge. We will be posting this in the next few days on our pre-med webinars page and our MCAT YouTube playlist. Thanks to all of you who attended. We so appreciate your time for joining us, and we hope you have a fantastic day.